Yeah, I thought Jason would be up in a bucket truck with his iPad joining the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty nice out there, but I've missed a few, so trying to make a presence.
Okay, so you, oh, well, we just lost John. I see his shoulder.
Oh, I'm here.
All right, have a quorum and you're live streaming and recording, so you can start anytime you want, but we do need to make sure we acknowledge by roll call who's actually here in attendance.
Okay, Carol, are you game to take roll call?
I can, sure. Okay. I'm just gonna go by what I'm seeing on the screen. So Jason Burchard,
Present.
Carol Truckee,
Present.
Rob Morrow,
Here.
Sue Terrio,
Here.
John Glynn,
Present.
Mike and Heather Steers.
Here.
Thank you. Sheila McIntosh
Here.
and Antonio Texera.
Yeah.
Thank you. And that's who's present. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. The first item on the agenda is to look at the minutes that Sue took, seems like ages ago, but it was an important meeting. Does there anybody have any changes to the minutes? If not, can we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, good. Can we have a vote to approve? Oh, can I have all the ayes?
Aye.
Any nays? I think that sounds like it's unanimous. Okay, let's dive right in. We're honored to have Donnie Medeiros here. We gave him quite a grilling the last time, but he seems to have come back, and I think he's full of interesting ideas. Donnie, can we turn the meeting over to you?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So just looking through the notes that I made from the last meeting, is we thought that in no particular order, but talking about bridge design, bridge aesthetics, we thought that I think we recognize that it needs to be a precast concrete structure for economy. But we wanted to put wood over the top of it, so it'd be a similar type bridge to what we have now. Would be a gravel surface, so there'd be gravel over the concrete deck, so you'd see gravel on the surface. You'd have a little wooden curb on either side. Right now there's a railroad type wooden curb on the bridge. I'm talking about the south or the east bridge, of course. That's the one that's more related, looks like what we're talking about replacing. So we thought wood on the top for a curb, and the wood would run the facade down the side to the top of the culvert opening. And then from the top of the culvert opening down, we thought we have options. One is we could put a form liner in the concrete form to give the appearance of a stone bridge. We can also add color to the concrete mix to actually get close to a stone color that we might like. That's one option. The other option is we could have the casting yard cast a shelf on the footings, on the top of the footings at the bottom of the walls, and we'd then be able to face off the concrete with natural stone. We'd have a shelf underneath for the stone to sit on, and we'd have to get a competent mason, obviously, to be able to face that off with natural stone. A couple of concerns were color of the concrete. There were concerns about looking under the bridge. We could do what we can to make the outside look aesthetically nice, but somebody questioned, should we put color underneath in the concrete under the bridge, just in case somebody's at a vantage point where they might see something that the committee doesn't want people to see. And I'm going to skip on. I know we'll come back to that because I imagine we have a lot of things to talk about and kick around regarding bridge aesthetics, but just to kind of keep moving. But we've talked about the 12-foot travel width is good. So we'd have anywhere from 10 to 12 feet of clearance between the wooden, curbs, like almost like guardrails, if you will, to keep tires staying on the bridge. Also, we talked about a wooden handrail on the bridge above the wooden bumper tire stops. Let's see, we also, we talked about potentially talking about the potential to do one or more bypasses for flood flows to help alleviate the erosion at the bridges. We'll get into that a little bit more in a few minutes. We recognized the committee, it's important to the committee to minimize land disturbance, particularly with an eye towards encouraging invasives to come in and repopulate disturbed areas. We know minimizing disturbance is good for the DEM permit as well, the overall cost, that sort of thing. Let's see. So we did. I have a casting yard in mind who I've worked with, and the people are excellent. They're very good to work with. They tailor the design to your needs. For example, one we did on Long Highway, they designed the segments of the culvert so they were the biggest that their delivery truck with the crane on it could lift and extend over to set in place. So for that project, they worked with us. So we eliminated the need to hire a crane because they knew the capacity of their equipment. They knew the access they had for their equipment. And therefore they made the segments just light enough so that they could set them in place for us. That's not going to be the case here. In this case here, what they will do is they'll deliver the segments and drop them off. We'll need to, at the site, we'll need to then transport them to the bridge sites. And we'll also need a crane to basically lift the footings and lift the segments in place. So on that note, we're probably going to have to rely on Jason's expertise to see if we need to go through there and lift a few of the lower branches on the access road and in certain spots up to where we need to set up the crane to do the work. I did get some specific information from the casting yard about pigment. So we talked about for pigment to color the concrete, from what we described to them, they said they have a slate blue color, but of course it's the most expensive. They do have a substitute that people use that's a little less when they want the slate blue color. If the committee decides to go that route, we'll provide samples. The coloring is consistent throughout the mix. So if we decide to use coloring, we can't say, well, let's color this part and save money by not coloring the other part, with one exception. This will be cast in segments. So if we decide we do want the color, we could just put color in the two end segments, and then the interior segments between the two culvert ends, inlet and outlet, those wouldn't have color and they probably wouldn't need color. Let's see, what else did we talk about? So the approximate cost. So we sent a PDF that may or may not have been circulated to the committee. It's a brochure from the company that sells the form liners. There's different options for the different stone look, but the form liner, they put it in the form before they pour the concrete. So when they're done and they strip it off, it's a one-time deal. It gets ruined when they strip it, but then you've got the surface of the concrete that looks like whatever stone pattern or form liner you chose. And I'm almost done, but just to finish up, the approximate cost of the form liner is going to be about $10,000 additional to the cost of the casting. The approximate cost of the color is probably going to be about $1,000 additional. So if we color and use the form liner throughout, you're looking at an additional approximate $11,000. If we color and face only the exterior segments only, you're probably looking at an additional $5,500. If we go no color and no form liner, because we would do the natural stone face on the shelf, I would say I'm not concerned about somebody who's down in the stream bed or who might be down low on the bank peeking underneath for a couple of reasons. One is it's very rare occurrence. The second is the water staining over time is gonna color that concrete dark. It's a moist area. You're gonna have moss starting to grow there and other like bacteria, which will take the fresh concrete color away. We could even paint it black to give it a start, and then let nature finish darkening it on her own. The only caveat with those numbers are, of course, in this day and age, material costs are approximate because they depend on availability. But that's generally a good representation of the additional costs to do the form liner and or the coloring. So I go ahead.
Don, could I ask a question?
Certainly.
Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yes,
Tell-
we can.
Can you just tell me again what a form liner is?
Yeah, so when they cast the concrete, they have to build the form. First, they design the structure, design the dimensions of the segments, then they build a wood form to pour the concrete in. And at the end of the day, like any form, they'll strip it away. But what they'll do is after they build the wood form, before they put the concrete in, they will put a form liner on the inside of the wood form. And that will force the concrete to take the shape of the stone and the joints in the pattern that you choose.
Okay, and that's an additional $10,000 you said to get
Yes.
that. Okay,
That's
Thank you.
correct.
Urban with color. Don, I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah.
How much exposed area will we have on the bridge on the sides? What's the freeboard of the bridge?
You're probably going to have you're probably going to have 18 inches of concrete from the bridge deck down to the top of the hydraulic opening. So about 18 inches, give or take, and then of course you'll have the curb on top of that and the gravel. But from the side, you should probably see about 18 inches. But we're planning on covering that with wood, I think.
Okay, so why do we need a form liner then? Because if we only,
Oh, well, so now on either side, so think of the culvert, it's going to be an upside down horseshoe, right? The
yeah,
bottom's going to be open. The bottom's going to be the natural stream channel. So it'll be a bottomless box culvert is what it's called. All right.
Okay.
So you'll have both sides coming up. They'll come up about 4 feet high. And so that'll be the top of the arch, if you will. It'll be 4 feet high. So there'll be a segment on either side. And then there'll probably be about 12 to 18 inches of concrete over the arch.
mhm,
Okay? And all that's going to be exposed. Now, if we bring the wood down from the top, we can bring it down to the top of the arch. I don't think we want to bring it down on either side. To me, that's going to look a little hokey.
yeah,
I thought we could bring natural stone from the bottom up on either side. You could even get fancier than that and bring the stone up a little higher if aesthetically it looks good.
Will you? Can I
Donnie,
say something? I have a question.
go ahead. Heather.
Will you be able to show us a drawing what you just that depicts what you just described?
Yes.
Thank you, because
You
I
beat me to
I
it.
will need that.
Is
I
it,
think we all want-
is it in the form that you gave me earlier? A general description or no?
Are you talking to me? Are you asking me, Carol?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You-
I did not submit a cross-sectional sketch of what the culvert might look like.
And
Well, I think
it wasn't in that green streak form liner?
No, that's just to show different patterns of, well, actually, if you look in there, I guess you get a general idea. I mean, I assume everybody has a general idea of what a culvert looks like, but it would be a good visual if you look in that form line bracket.
So the bridge you put on Long Highway, that would be a square culvert that doesn't have the reverse horseshoe view, a profile view. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the top wouldn't be an arch. It would be like the one on Long Highway. It would come up with 2 vertical sides and then it would have a horizontal ceiling.
So that's what we're considering for the brook there, a square
That-
one like Long Highway, not an arch.
Not That's correct. And we're also, we would have wing walls like the one on Long Highway has. It doesn't have wing walls on all sides, but you're familiar with wing walls. They come off a culvert on an angle. Again, that's where we would use natural stone to blend that into the sides of the culvert itself.
When you say natural stone, are you talking about this cast stone that we looked at samples of, or actual stone from
Stonewall.
a riverbank or a stone wall?
So what we're talking about, Heather, is on the culvert foot. So picture how the culvert goes in place. Once we have the area prepped, we have to drop in a footing on either side of the stream, because the culvert had, like a foundation wall, has to sit on a footing. Okay. So
Yeah.
we set a footing on either side of the stream. The top of the footing is going to be approximately the bottom of the stream channel. Okay. At the top of that footing, we're gonna come out horizontally with a shelf so that we can stack field stone on it. We've got a base to start stacking field stone, so we can build a field stone facade up the side of that culvert. So it's the alternative to doing it with the form liner and showing the stones by stamping the concrete, so to speak.
Much better. Thank you.
Yeah, I think most people think that that's going to be resemble what's there, and I think that's what we're going to go for.
Yeah.
But I don't think it matters if the underside of the bridge is painted,
No,
is concrete and painted black or stained black. I think that would be okay. You don't look on, most people, as Donnie said, don't look underneath it. Particularly if you don't see, particularly if the natural stone sticks out a little bit so that you don't see the face of the
Right.
underside. I don't know how to explain that, but I think Heather is right that we're going to need to see a sketch.
Mhm.
But
So,
Hey,
Donnie, you're planning to
Oh,
do
go
that
ahead, Sue.
anyway, so yeah.
Can I ask one question too? I was just, Don, you mentioned a gravel bed on the surface, on the road surface.
Yes.
Is there a reason that it has to be gravel? There's just not gravel elsewhere. I wonder how sustainable that will be, or how much of it will just end up everywhere else in the area. Is there any other option for what the surface might be?
You could make the surface wood.
yeah,
You could wood veneer over the concrete. I don't know why you wouldn't want to use gravel. All the roads through there are gravel. It seems to me that would blend in pretty nicely. But you can do anything you want. I think the alternatives are exposed concrete, which is not a good one for a lot of reasons, not only aesthetic reasons. Put some kind of material over it, gravel, wood chips, pea stone. And not that wood chips would be recommended for there, but you could also just run wood planking across it too and secure it down to the concrete.
Johnny,
Like that.
Johnny, it's John. Could we just put the just the base that's used on the roads, just that sandy base that's on the roads now, and just put a veneer over that, just so you don't see the bare cement, or do you think it would all wash off?
No, that's what I think we should do, is we should put down gravel, the same type of gravel that's on the roads now, because don't forget, when you finish the construction in this area, you're going to come in with gravel and clean it all off to restore the area. So you are going to have new gravel there. So it's not like you're going to come down the old winding road through the woods and all of a sudden there's new gravel over a new bridge and then you're back to it. I mean, we're going to have to blend it in, and I think it's going to look fine myself.
I think so. Can you get us potholes?
Sure.
Hey, Don, I have a
better.
quick question if you have a second. If it was going to be a stone veneer, as an engineer, I mean, obviously you couldn't use like something small like potato stone or something like that with the hydraulic pressure, or whatever it is that's going underneath the bridge pushing. I mean, would that have to be really a large field stone veneer, or could it be something inexpensive and smaller that we could hide up against the concrete without it getting washed away over the years?
So I think that's a really those are good questions, Jason, and I think that what I'd like to see is we use the stone from the old stone abutments that are there now to the degree that we can, and see if we can get more to match it, because I think we're gonna need a little bit more.
Right.
But, you know, those stones are fairly good size. But I mean, that's a good point. We'll have to decide on the width of the shelf we need to basically support the width of the stone we're planning on using. I don't see hydraulic pressure being an issue. I see just wear and tear over time. You've got well, a current, which you've got a current, you've got freezing and thawing, and we've got to find a super competent mason who's confident that they can do this. I mean, I don't think it's rocket science, but a lot of care needs to be put in thought, I think, would need to go into that.
Yep. Oh, all right. Thank you.
It looks to me, this is John, it looks to me as though the original bridge was just dry laid with no cement. It's amazing that it stood up this long. But I think we'd probably want a little bit of cement in the behind it, even if it's not exposed, just to kind of have it last a little bit longer. But I don't know, Donnie, what do you think about that?
Well, I originally thought the same thing, John, that the stones were dry laid. And then when I looked a little closer, you can see that they were pointed with cement, whether that was a later fix. Because some of it does look dry laid, but there's certainly parts that have, you know, that were pointed up. So
that makes sense. Well,
don't, but
more
I guess
discussion about aesthetics. I think we're all curious to see some sketches and stuff, Don. So, but we can do that at the next meeting or two. What you wanted to bring up the issue of bypasses. I think that's
Sure.
probably the larger discussion.
Okay, before we jump into that, John, just to finalize the thought of doing a dry laid stone finish. Now, I think we're going to have to point it off with cement between the joints. In that environment where you have a current and whatnot, that's just trouble. So I think we're going to have to do that. Now, there's an opportunity to have the on-site mason add a coloring additive to the cement between the joints, which might ameliorate the contrast between natural stone and cement pointing in between.
That sounds like a good idea. The adding color doesn't weaken the cement, does it?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
I can ask, but I can't imagine it would.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
That's another thing I think you'd want to see a sample of, because color really gives me the creeps when you were talking about the blue and the red and what the casting colors. I mean, I don't know. I just think that's really tricky on this cement color.
So I don't think so, but I think I'm getting a sense from the group. I think we're past the idea that we want to put color in the concrete and that we want to use a form liner. I think we're thinking, since we're covering most of the concrete with wood, and the part that isn't covered with wood will be facing off with stone. So now we're talking about coloring in a pretty minuscule, we're talking about coloring in a joint, which you've got shadows anyways. But I think, Heather, that's probably something we'll want to talk to local people about. I can see what we can get from the casting yard and just buy the pigment from them, but I'm not sure how that plays out. Will they just sell the pigment to our mason? I don't know. They might, or we get it online. But I agree. Before we choose colors, we'd like to see some samples.
Yep. It's John. In my experience, color fades too. So I think if we put in a black or chocolate, in 2 years, it would have faded. But then, as Don says, it's also going to be turning green with a lot of algae and high humidity and so on. So, we'll just have to make a best guess at something that seems as organic as we can get.
Great.
Wasn't there an old trick to coloring joints by spraying it with buttermilk?
Rob, you and I can go down there and do that.
Yeah, that's how you get moss to grow on cement, is spray it with
game.
watermelon.
I'm game.
Interesting.
I think beer is good too.
Yeah,
Now you're talking.
in or out.
Yeah, everything. Yes, all of the above. Okay, Don, what about the bypasses?
So probably what I would ask is if I did a rough exhibit, which we already started the field survey this week. We ran control in out from Swamp Road, so we established Rhode Island State Plane coordinates. So we have a horizontal datum that works with RIGIS, so we can be seamlessly import data from RIGIS into our drawings. We also brought in a vertical datum, which is the NAVD 88 flood datum, which also any topographical data on RIGIS is on that datum as well. So we got some shots out on Swamp Road to help orient the property lines, even though, you know, our work is well on the interior. We ran the control in down to both bridge sites. Then we imported 2-foot contours from RIGIS. They laid in surprisingly better than I expected, because when I was a bit surprised when I went on RIGIS and looked at the existing contours, the topography out there is extremely broken in places. It was kind of difficult to picture, believe it or not, where the stream was. Now, anyone that knows how to read topography well can pick out a stream quite easily and know which direction it's flowing. This wasn't quite as obvious, but when we brought it into our datum, or brought our datum in RIGIS and combined the two into our CAD drawing, we were able to, using some additional sources, we were able to figure out where the actual stream channel is, and wound up being pretty happy with the fit that we got. We are going to need additional field topography in certain areas, depending on, certainly at both bridge sites and near the waterfall, where we're going to be stabilizing a section of bank. Do we call that the waterfall just for nomenclature, or what do we call that near a Washock Stone, the little dam there? Is there a name for that? Waterfall. Okay, good. So we were able to sketch the stream bed on the topography, and now we have a really good understanding of elevations out there. So we took some surface observations, just like, geez, if we were going to try to do a bypass, could we do it and where? But the topography helps inform that a little better, but we're certainly going to need to go out and shoot some hard data in certain critical areas to be able to, you know, look at whether a bypass is feasible or not. But so that's the introduction. So if Carol wouldn't mind showing the map on the screen.
Which one would you like?
Carol, try the last one I sent you. Well, no, actually, try the first of three, which was the complete one. Showed both bridges, the entrance, Swamp Road. If we start there, we can then maybe go to that upper watershed exhibit later.
Got it.
Great. So I'm unfamiliar with procedure here, Carol. Can you zoom that in, or do members zoom it up from their own iPad, or?
We can zoom.
I don't know. Hang on. I can zoom. All right. Just tell me what you want.
Oh, perfect.
Wow,
Perfect.
that's perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Trying to think. So Carol, can you pan that so that the what's seen on the bottom? I'd like to go the other way to Swamp Road, so we can start at the road. All right. There you go. That's perfect. Okay. So there's Swamp Road. You can see the contours. They're 2-foot contours. There are labels on them. Basically, we also shot the culvert out at Swamp Road, where that stream comes from the south side of Swamp Road. It's not a stream, but it's a little bit of drainage from the swamp on the south side of the road. we show that as so water channels are shown as a, I don't know if you can see the color. I did it in a light red pencil, but it's a dash with 3 short dashes, which is the convention for the center line of a stream. So if you look at right where Carol's pointer is there, now there's the culvert. Now if you go up towards the top of the screen just a little bit, stop. Now you're going through the 18 contour.
Yeah.
And the V points upstream. So you see the 3 dots with the line that Carol's hovering over.
Mhm.
That's the stream. So you can follow that line up to the top of the screen, and that'll bring you, and now pan the screen down a little bit, Carol, and that'll bring you right into the brook just below the waterfall. All right. Now, maybe Carol, you could zoom that in just a shade more. There we go. And maybe pan the screen to the left so we can see the side to the right. So we'll look
This
at,
way? Oh, no, you want to go this way.
there you go, a little more. Okay, and now go up just a little so we can see a little better on the bridge. A little more. That looks pretty good right there.
You get
Perfect.
extra for this, you know.
Perfect. All right. So the existing stream, if we start at the waterfall and we go down the line with the 3 dots, that's going to be the center line of the stream. You can see the waterfall is right about contour 14, forms the channel, pretty much defines it around the waterfall. So the stream flows up off the screen at the top and then hooks down and flows down again. And you'll see that I have written Thalweg. If you can see that, it's going to be like kind of to the upper right center of the screen. There you go.
Mhm.
So that's the lowest. The Thalweg is when you have a drought and there's barely a trickle of water in a stream, that's what's called the Thalweg. So that's like the deepest part that is really the origin of the stream channel. It's seldom the center of between the 2 banks. You can imagine on the outside of a curve, you've got the momentum of the water scours. So your Thalweg is very close on the outside of a curve and it's very far from the inside of a curve. So that's the difference there. Now, if you look below the Thalweg, just to the left, I've got a pencil section where I said high water. So when there's a lot of water coming through there, you're going to see it coming down this other channel until there's so much water that whole area is basically going to be inundated. All right. So, but if we go back to the Thalweg, and now we follow it down around to the right and down around right where it meets the road there, it takes a hard right-hand corner, comes along the road, and then takes a hard left and goes under what I'm showing is the East Bridge. So what we know is when water flows, it gets momentum. So in order to be able to, so those are the places that get eroded the most. So when that water comes down from the written word Thalweg and it hits that first curve, that bank there is just forcing that water. The water's fighting to undermine the bank and it's forcing it to then flow down to the southwest down to the East Bridge. Same thing happens at the East Bridge, but much more serious because on the curve up above, there's a reasonable nature, if you will, given scoured out a reasonable curve in the channel. When it gets down to the East Bridge, it's pretty much almost like a stop. Now, okay, we'll like flow under the bridge. So things like that will cause a backup in flow. They can cause eddies, which can start to contribute towards erosion. So one of the alternatives or one of the options where we could do a potential flood relief would be right on the south side of the East Bridge, which would be on the approach from Swamp Road when you come into the Wilbour Woods and you're coming up to that East Bridge. The logical place to put the flood relief would be right around where I show it in black pen, because because the water wants to go that way anyways. We just would have to, we could just help it do that. Another option, less effective, but I mean, everything's effective, especially if you use things in tandem, if you will, or cumulative effect. We could possibly do a potential flood relief up above that East Bridge where I show a second one. I that one where I show it probably isn't the best spot. If we wanted to do one up there, I think it'd be closer to the turn above. And I think we would want to, we would have to shoot some grades to see if we could send it on the north side of that closed 14 contour, right where I have the written potential flood relief. There's a little circular 14 contour that closes on itself. So just above that, where Carol's pointer is, that's where that flood relief probably would be better. We'll have to see if we could do it, if the committee thinks they want to do it. Similar situation up at the West Bridge. Same type of thing. There's an opportunity there. We just need to look at it. It's like I said, we'll talk in detail about the West Bridge flood relief when we get to it. But my vision of what that would entail would be is if we can, first of all, we don't want to do work in the stream bed. But if we can get to a point in the bank where we say, geez, okay, the bank's and stream is 2 feet deep to the top of the bank. If we can take the bank down in one area and cut a 12-inch or an 18-inch notch in it, and we've got a path to allow this excess water to flow through non-erosively, that's something that I think we could do and that DEM would entertain. We've got an option for something more extensive upstream, and that would then depend on the how much the committee wants to delve into the idea of using storage potential of a wide area to then store a little bit of water and also redirect a flood relief to help bypass floodwaters, to bypass the West Bridge.
So Don, is the flood relief a culvert that you'd put at a certain elevation under the road?
No, what I would stay away from that. Hard piping is kind of the least attractive thing we would want to do. What I would see is where it crosses the road. So I think it'd be an open channel on the surface, like a swale, proper grade and slope and lining so that we don't have erosion. Where it crosses a road, what we would do is we would drop the surface of the road and put in heavy stone, so that it'd be like a spot where water is expected and desired to flow over the road, and the surface of the road withstands that type of flow. So the best example of that, I would say, is in Simmons Mill Pond. If you go down and you walk out to the ponds out the back, I know, Paul, we've been out there years ago, but they're around the lower ponds at Simmons Mill. There's a lower horseshoe pond below the main pond with the dam, not Simmons Mill Pond, but the next pond down. And so the earth dam that forms that horseshoe pond has a gravel road that runs along the top of it. And there are two spots where the gravel surface dips slightly, and there's good sized rock, so that when there's a good flow, the water flows right over that road. And when it's dry, there's no flow over the road. So when you're going down the road, there's always a spot where, okay, the material changes from gravel to coarse stone for a length of 30 feet or whatever. But that's the better way to handle that than to try to use piping. DEM's not going to like piping. Piping's not going to look good. And it's to my way of thinking, there isn't a need for it.
Sounds much better.
I think we have to do some field trips.
I agree. I think, John, that the next meeting we want to have in terms of talking about potential flood relief is we need a site meeting out there to basically, and I could share some ideas. I'll do a little bit of surveying ahead of time, so we'll have some pretty specific things to show you in terms of what's possible, what isn't possible.
Can you tell us? I'm sorry. I'm curious as to how often now the flood relief would be a good thing to have? I mean, how often does this area flood now?
I've been in there when those two spots that he has marked on the map have been flowing over the roads completely.
Mhm.
And it's when it does overflow, it's exactly where those marks are. So I've been in there. I mean, that was, geez, that was, I mean, we had gotten inches of rain, probably 3 inches of rain after that when I was in there. But it does happen.
It happens quite frequently too, Jason,
Yep.
and you're what you're characterizing. And all of this goes down and floods out Swamp Road, of course. So anything we can do in terms of slowing down storage, if you redirect water away from the channel, you're automatically, it's going to find its way back to the channel in the way that you want it to. But there are things you can do to lengthen that flow path so that that does help a little bit in offsetting flood peaks. Like if we look to see what's on the screen there, where we were talking about the Thalweg and the high water section in that wide expanse above the East Bridge, in the middle there I wrote floodplain, and you can see that contour 12, which comes right across there. That's an area there where we could try to do something to take advantage of the fact we've got a wide, shallow floodplain, and maybe we can do some things with natural materials and without using machinery, and get in there and say, instead of putting down sandbags in New Orleans, maybe we can use core logs, drop some trees, logs, core logs, natural materials to try to create a little bit of a, storage potential, which means hold back the flood water a little bit. You're not going to stop it. But if we can do a bunch of cumulative things, we ought to be able to lessen the impact downstream. But when we got wet ground conditions and we get the 4-inch or 5-inch rain, or the 2-inch downpour in 24 hours, and in an hour we get 2 inches of rain, you're going to have a lot of water coming through there. So the prime concern is allowing that water to get through without eroding the bridges we just built, without eroding the stream channel we just repaired. We're knowing the storms are going to be more intense. We know that sea level's rising, and right now what FEMA has is they've got a backwater from coastal flooding, which would be the wave action and storm surge. They're at about elevation 16, which comes almost up to the East Bridge. So if you think about, we've got a coastal storm, and Briggs Marsh is backed up into Swamp Road, and the stream's backed up to the bridge. That there's not much place for the water to go. So I think we need to understand whatever we do here, we're not going to have an end all. Like if we do X, Y, and Z, we've eliminated any kind of flood issues in the future.
Who pays for all this? This sounds like, DPW work.
No, that's Tony will pay for it. He just got a big grant.
Okay, good, Tony. Thank you. That's good to know.
Excellent. Well, I must admit, I'm a little nervous about a lot of big gravel in there, but I think that there may be some way to use the gravel, put the same fine surface material over it.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it may just wash away too. So, but let's look. I think we just need to go look at it. So,
I've seen the East Bridge underwater, so it does get pretty high in there.
yeah.
And that's usually, Paul, we see the water flowing over it, but a lot of the reason for that being underwater is because the water below it is backed up. So the water that comes in up above, it really doesn't have much place to go.
Agreed.
That's an issue that we're never going to be able to change, right?
Yeah.
Does anybody on the committee have any kind of severe negative approach that this is a totally wrong thing for us to be exploring? I mean, we may go down and hate it when we see it, but you know, if we can keep something that looks natural, I think it'd be worth trying to explore options. Heather, you look dubious.
The center area makes me nervous. I know you're proposing using natural materials, but to create a retention pond, it sounds like. That makes me very nervous.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't call it a retention pond, Heather. What I would say is if you imagine that open floodplain area, there's a lot of shrubbery in there. There are trees in some of the high spots. You've got trees that are still taking hold. Imagine a hurricane and all the trees were kind of like knocked over by the wind willy-nilly. Well, now you've just made a crib work, so the waters can't just like flow down a nice stone line channel. Now it's kind of got to, you know, it's going to rise up a little bit and it's going to try to seep its way through the trees, through the debris that gets piled up there. So it's a natural way of slowing the water down as opposed to constructing some kind of a detention pond.
But you're opening it up for invasives if you cut the trees and let the sunlight in.
Well, what I would think it'd be more like if there's any dead trees, we can drop them. Probably core logs and things like that. I mean,
I don't know what those are. What did you, core logs don't
those
mean?
those are the coconut fiber logs that they fill with coconut fiber. You use them to stabilize banks, and you can plant right in and around them. So that's more what I'm thinking about is using those natural logs, so to speak, to basically get the water to want to stop and seep in and explore its way outwards rather than just whistling down the stream channel in a fast current.
So if I could just maybe summarize, I'm kind of looking at the two potential flood relief zones as a separate issue from this, I don't know what to call it. We're not going to call it a retention pond, but let's say slowdown area. Like you could conceivably do the flood relief without the slowdown area. Is that correct? Because I guess I share Heather's concern. And again, it's something we'd have to see and really think about. Can we look at these as two separate issues? Like, could you put the flood relief area in without doing the slowdown area?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the logical thing is to do the potential flood relief first, see if it's working well enough before you do the middle piece.
Yeah, I think, and I have some hesitation above that, in that sort of that floodplain area is all filled with hellebores, helleborines and so on that look like skunk cabbages. That's it's a beautiful stand of it. I'd hate to, and it's really, I've tried to grow that in my garden. It takes about 20 years to get a mature plant. So, you can't exactly replace something like that. But let's be open-minded and look at it. This is, if we go pretty soon, it's a perfect time to look, actually.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
right now.
to your point, John, we shouldn't wait. As soon as we can get a meeting advertised and out there, we should, because every day I survey now, I can see less and less in the woods. So when we go out there, we'll all see less and less if we don't do this sooner than later.
Right now is the perfect time to see the floodplain for all the reasons John and Don mentioned.
Yeah.
But also I would think the kind of active stream sort of reconfiguration we're discussing would also be something that DEM would have very strong opinions about. Anything that's going to change stream flow or the stream corridor. So that might be another just flag to throw out there that will probably be.
That's
something
good.
They will have concerns about.
Yeah, that's a good point, Carol. So what we would be proposing is we wouldn't be proposing changing stream flow. We'd just be talking about allowing high flows to
Hmm.
go into other areas. Because we definitely, we're not going to change the base flow in the stream. That whole stream hydrology and corridor ecosystem, corridor for wildlife habitat, that's all not going to be changed.
Mhm.
How does, is 2 weeks from now too soon, too far away? 4th of May?
Are you done with this map?
I think so, unless you want to look up at the west.
At the West Bridge?
You
Yeah.
probably should while we're on that.
Whereabouts was that?
That's up to the upper left, Carol.
Yeah.
And now, Carol, if you could, would you go to the map I sent you this afternoon, the one that says Upper Watershed, I think was the name of it? That will have this area, but it'll have a little more above, which is kind of helpful.
This one? This one?
Let's see. I sent you one late in the day.
Yeah, that's this one.
Can you zoom out then? Because we should be able to see quite a bit more to the top of the screen. Yeah, I think that's the if that's what we have, that'll suffice. We can use
Well,
that.
let me put the others. This is one other one. And then this is the other one. So I think that first one is, this one here is the last one you sent me today.
All right, my screen's not changing, Carol, so I
Yeah,
don't know.
mine's not
Oh,
on.
all right. Okay, hang on. Let me close the other ones and maybe that'll help. Okay, whoop. My bad. There, how's that?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
All right.
It was
Now,
on the right screen for me, but evidently not you.
okay. And now just zoom in a bit, Carol, if you would. Okay, that looks pretty good.
I'm gonna try to go a little bit more.
A
That.
little more. Now pan the bridge towards the bottom of the page so we can see a little bit above it. There you go. That looks good right there. So when you look at the bridge and you look at the contours that form the stream above the bridge, you've got basically elevation 16, which is a closed contour just above the bridge. That's basically the stream bottom there is elevation 16. The contours on either side of 16 are 18, which go upstream and close upstream. So where that 18 crosses the channel up above, that's right about where I think Wigwam Pond is. I kind of sketched it in a little bit there. So now if you look over to the right, you've got elevation 20 and 22. So you've got a little bit of a hill and some high ground, and to the far left where the property line is, you're at elevation 20. So there's a little bit of topography there that's available to think about, a flood relief. Looking at it the other day, it seemed like we might be able to do something in the area that I sketched, potential flood relief just on the other side of the bridge. I do want to do a little more surveying in there to see. Part of the issue is with that is to be effective, we're gonna want to try to get our notch as far upstream as possible to be able to encourage floodwater to say, okay, here's another route I can take. But we'll have to do some ground survey work to see the extent of what's possible there. But I think there's automatically something possible there, because you figure when the water up above now comes down to that west bridge, naturally it wants to go under the bridge. If there's too much water, it's going to want to overtop the bridge. So you've got elevation 18 on both sides of the bridge, and it comes up probably up just a little bit higher when you get up to the gravel road, and because there's a campsite there we're about where the words West Bridge are. So you've got plenty of grade, so the water will back up to and probably flow over that bridge. which means if the waters rises up, that means we've got an opportunity for less of a deep of a notch to be able to take some of that flood water away. So that's the thing. We've got to do some work up in that area just upstream to see what we can do. I suspect we'd probably come in somewhere where if you go up from the bridge following the stream channel, you've got the closed 16 contour, then this going upstream, the stream goes to the west, then it goes north, then it kicks back to the east and then goes north again, right in that area where it transitions from east to north, again, going upstream. That's probably the spot where we'd be able to, have the beginning of this swale for the flood relief, and it would come right down along and cross over the road right into about where I sketched the potential flood relief. That's what I'm thinking is available to us. If you want to do a flood control project, we've got a beautiful spot upstream where we could do some work up there, and maybe we could make Wigwam Pond less of a mud hole and more of an actual pond that has different aesthetics as well as a little bit of storage potential. But that's probably another issue for another day.
Yeah.
I think we should, Don, I don't see how this West Bridge would, how we could do flood relief without having to do a channel, 100 feet long across through the woods. I think we're gonna have a hard time talking ourselves into that.
Well, so we've got options, right? So what I see visually, and I think Jason saw this when he was out there at a good flood stage, is when you cross that West Bridge and you go up to up the road about to where my little potential flood relief crosses, there is a low area through there. So without doing anything, there's an actual area where the water flows around. Simply because the banks at the bridge are higher in elevation, I believe. It certainly looks that way, that you can envision water flowing through there under high conditions. So, and that makes sense because nature is going to find her own way anyway. So if the water doesn't want to go under the bridge, it's going to rise up till it finds the lowest area where it can flow by.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Donnie, do we have to do, is it all or nothing? We have to do flood relief for both bridges?
Nope.
Or if either, even if we do one, because the East Bridge looks easy. This one to me looks tough, but I have to go down and look at it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think it's probably more valuable at the East Bridge. Because the bypass up above, it doesn't bypass the waterfall, it doesn't bypass the East Bridge. So you might be right, John, that maybe we don't need to do anything up at the West Bridge.
Well, I think we should just look at it. We're paying for your advice, so we should listen to it. We may end up not taking it.
Happens all the time.
You heard that before.
Oh yeah.
But I think we all want to look at it. So how does the 4th of May, is that too far in the distance, 2 weeks from today?
That's not gonna work. Not for, if you're gonna do a Zoom.
Can we do an outside meeting?
You're not supposed to.
What if we,
My
if it's COVID?
suggestion is to break it up into pieces where you don't have a quorum. Go out and individually research the area, have somebody take a whole bunch of pictures, then come back to a Zoom meeting where you can look at it. Only because the governor's orders still mandate that it be streamed somehow so that the public can see it, even if you're out on site visits.
Can we invite the people, the public to a site visit?
No, not the way the order is written.
Okay.
Would it be possible, Carol, to have someone with a phone with recording by video? And I don't know if you can live stream that way or.
If I thought that you had enough internet service to be able to do that, I mean, if somebody wants to test that theory out with me someday, to go up to Wilbour Woods and walk around while we try and run some sort of a Zoom, then I'm more than happy to try that, but I'm not sure that there's enough service up there for that to support.
So
Yeah.
cell service in Wilbour Woods Swamp Road in that area is very poor from Verizon's point of view.
Yeah,
That's good. That's correct.
AT&T is pretty good in that area.
okay.
I'm got pretty good service in all Wilbour Woods.
And it's a matter of somebody having AT&T to do the test, and then the person would have to be responsible for the day that you have the meeting to actually up on your phone.
I think photos sound perfectly adequate. I mean, really.
Yeah.
Well, what if
I
we
mean,
have,
some of you go out, take photos and show it to us. That sounds great.
Maybe we could do it by video. Would it be possible to show a video on a Zoom? I guess we could, right?
Oh, yes, you can.
'Cause I
know
think
Brett
videos
McKenzie has-
and photos would probably help.
Yeah, Brett McKenzie has taken videos and then given them to us, and I can share those.
okay, so do we want to try to have a meeting on the 4th and then have have a non-quorum reconnaissance of several people going down on the 27th, a week from today?
That sounds good.
Johnny, are you available both days?
I'm gonna have to go upstairs and check my calendar. I can do that if you don't mind waiting a moment.
Well,
So
before you go, the 4th is very busy for me. I have a beach committee meeting that starts at 5, and I have a board that starts at 7. So they're gonna likely run back to back or close.
How about Monday, the 3rd?
Monday, the 3rd is open.
Okay. Is that okay? I mean, we've been meeting on Tuesdays. It mixes everything up, but we can send reminders out. Okay, and then how about, and then Don, you're gonna check with your schedule to see if we can have a non-quorum reconnaissance.
Yeah, and when did you want to do that, John?
Well, I think it sounds like we should do it pretty soon. How about Tuesday, the 27th?
Tuesday, the 27th. Oh, I'm looking at May, no wonder. All right, let me, I can give you an answer in a minute if you just let me
Okay.
step away.
What time are you thinking, John?
I have been thinking about 4, but maybe we should do it earlier, 3, something, no. Well, I think 4 is okay.
Are you talking 4 o'clock for both days, the 27th and the 3rd? Not that it's for me on the.
I'm flexible, but why, but maybe that's the easiest, 4 o'clock. It doesn't break up everybody's day.
Well, you can't have a quorum on the 27th anyways.
Yeah,
I would suggest that whoever's gonna do that, keep it under the 7 and just make sure whoever's going has the ability to do the videotaping on their phone.
Okay,
If you have the old fashioned version.
okay, so we'll do either video or photos on the 27th. How about 4 o'clock, Donnie? You're gonna, it looks like he's checking on his calendar.
Checking on his, yeah. So the 3rd, if he's able to, you want that one to be at 4 o'clock?
Yeah, if that works for you, we're tying up all of your time, Carol. Thank you very much for doing all of this, visuals and all of that. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I do get paid for it, so
Well, that's a good thing.
you agreed to that, so.
No, we did agree. Without much contention.
No, that's true.
So I'm back. John, I can make next Tuesday, the 27th. I'd like to say around 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay. And then,
And do we
and
know
then
who
we'll
will be attending?
do we
I'll
have,
go.
I would like to go.
I'd like to be there just
Jason,
for sight lines through the trees and whatnot, if we have to talk about
I'll
large
bring
drainage
my
swales.
camera.
okay.
So we just make sure we don't have a quorum though, right? How many members, -1 means we don't have a quorum?
Quorum is 7 people, so 6 people.
Great.
Or less.
Plus you, Don. You're not a member of the, me-
I'll-
I'm not a member, right?
So how many names do you have so far?
4.
Or I think you've got,
I'll
Okay,
volunteer.
yeah, I'll go.
okay, good.
so
Perfect.
you've got Jason, Rob, I think Sue put her name up, her hand, up, and John, and now Sheila, so that's 5.
So Mike,
And Mike,
And
6
Mike,
is okay?
yep,
as long as
Yep.
nobody else goes, then that's your 6.
Yep.
So could you go again? Jason, Rob, Sue, John, Sheila,
Mike and
and Mike. Okay, I got 6.
Is there anyone else that wanted to go instead of me? Is there someone else out there who wanted to go? I don't want to take anybody else's spot. Okay,
I got
Good.
7. Don, John,
no,
Jason.
you don't count Don.
Don doesn't count.
Don's not a member.
Oh, you
Part of the
don't
committee.
count Don. Okay.
He's not part of the committee.
okay. So how about, so, and can everybody meet on the 4th of May at 4 PM?
Wait, it's
Third.
the 3rd of May,
I mean,
right?
3rd of May, 3rd of May,
Yeah.
4 PM, yes, 3rd of May.
Monday.
Yep,
Monday, the 3rd at 4 PM?
I think
Okay.
so.
okay,
Okay.
all right. Is there any other business to bring up today? This is our big ticket item.
The deer exclosure. What happened to that?
Oh, yeah.
I think we,
That is on the agenda for an update.
Right, so I did send my report, hopefully you got it. I just kind of outlined, my thoughts, and I also had, some steps that I'd like to take in preparation. I don't want to just reread what I've done here, but basically the questions that we were hoping to have answered by doing this is deer browse impacting forest regeneration in Wilbour Woods? Is the impact of deer browse different in the cleared and natural areas of Wilbour Woods? And then how do we manage the cleared area of Wilbour Woods going forward? Then I've just kind of outlined what the experiment could look like, given a little background on deer and their food preferences, and their potential impacts on plants. And then things to consider when constructing the exclosures and where to put them would be the soil. And so, interesting that Don showed that topographical map, because I think that could also be helpful for picking sites if we decide to put a couple exclosures up, because we would want to stay away from those flood areas, potential flood areas, which are fairly large in the cleared areas. Sunlight and overstory are considerations, competitive plants, but also like the attractiveness and the fact that this bridge construction project could be taking place, because that should also be considered when picking a site, because the construction itself could alter deer behavior. Some of the steps I thought that would be helpful in the planning process and choosing the sites would be to interview Public Works past and present to get a history of the clearing, to better define the cleared area and to get clarity on the current maintenance practices in the area. Also, maybe a walk through the woods with a forest expert to get their insight into the health of the woods and any signs that they see of deer impact. And also what I really want to do is have some actual communication with someone who has completed a deer exclosure experiment. And there was one that was done at URI's Alton Jones campus back in 2011. So I really want to see what they were able to learn from that experiment, and if it is actually still going, because some of these go for a really long time, to actually visit it. There is a person involved in that I have a connection with, because her name is Hope Leeson, and she's with the Rhode Island Wild Plant Society. So I definitely wanted to reach out to her because she was part of that project. And then the idea, I came across a lot of talk of camera use to actually get an idea of what deer are doing in a space, and to estimate something called deer density, which, so I thought, I know we had mentioned cameras at one point. I think Heather had brought that up, and I still think that that could be a way to get some insight into what is going on in the woods. So those are just some thoughts and some steps some things I've been looking into, and some steps that I think could be helpful in planning, this experiment. So maybe even when we visit on Tuesday with Dawn and others, we can actually look at the spaces and talk a little bit about where exclosures might actually, fit into this overall project, where we could actually maybe see some being constructed. So.
It was a great report, Sue. You've done
It
a
is
lot of
great
work.
report.
Oh, thanks, Heather. Thank you.
No, really, it was very informative.
Okay, good.
It's very, very good. So one of the questions I have for the committee is, do we want these exclosures to be visible or invisible to the general public? Do we want them sort of discreet, or do we want to draw attention to it, et cetera? Are there any impacts as far as vandalism or what, is it better to be obvious and have an experiment with a sign on it saying experiment in progress, or is it better to have it sort of quiet science? What's everybody's feeling?
Mhm.
Some of these.
Well, if you don't have it marked, people will walk into the exclosure area, won't they?
Well, I think we have to put a gate on it of some kind.
You get what you pay for with deer
Yeah.
fencing.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
the bottom line. I mean, you can get the cheap stuff at Home Depot, or I mean, you can get stuff that you could run into full speed and you'll bounce right off it. It's just a matter of cost to make it rugged enough to withstand the test of time, or so that somebody can't run into it themselves. And you also have to actually, something else to consider with this is deer making it well enough that the deer don't get caught up in it as well.
Mhm.
Shoddy deer fences, that's something we got to consider,
Yep.
too.
Yep. I think also there's a problem of keeping an eye on them, because branches fall on them and then the deer go cross
Mhm.
over them and so on. So they take some, occasionally have to keep an eye on them, particularly after storms.
Well, I'd be happy to go in ahead of time
Yeah.
with you folks when the time comes and kind of look up and see what we're getting into.
Oh, that's a smart idea.
John, to your question
excuse
about posting or education, I think the other thing that we should think about is, especially in the cleared area, wanting to have something fenced and then some sort of a control that's not fenced sort of necessitates that they be identified with some
Yep.
minimally intrusive
Mhm.
public signage that sort of says, please respect that this is a study going on, and don't, that what you don't want to have happen is sue to get started and have some sort of control plot that then somebody decides is a great place to, whatever, picnic or do
Yeah.
something that disturbs her work.
Sounds like this,
I think they're gonna have to be marked in some way, and we can try to do it subtly, but I think you're gonna have to tell people this is what's going on, or else.
Well, I think we want to tell people too. So, yeah, I think we can do it, laminated, something that's sort of
Yeah.
medium green, it's laminated. We could do pretty discreetly.
Don, what were you thinking?
oh, sorry, no, I was just trying to say that it sounds like we're gonna have a very happy deer population down there. Thank you all. I have another commitment I have to run. I think you guys done with me for this meeting?
Oh, yes.
Okay, thank you, Don.
Thank
All
you
right,
very
great.
much, John. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a nice evening.
I think that I think it's important. I mean, I'm definitely worried about what the fencing could look like in the woods, and I get worried about signs and things like that, because I feel like, you go to Wilbour Woods for the peace and the natural beauty. I also, but if you keep in mind why you're doing the experiment, it kind of includes the cleared area, which I think walking with Public Works and getting the cleared area defined will be helpful. But the cleared area it's by definition, it is kind of a visible area. So it is kind of a conundrum.
So if we go through and fence off an area, we have a safe area where plants can grow naturally. Is this forever? Because once you uncover the plants, won't the deer come back?
So I think you're doing it to try and figure out what the impact of deer is. So it would never be forever. You are creating sort of an unnatural situation by putting up a fencing. And I think it's more to study what could the space look like without deer versus what it looks like with deer. And I mean, we don't even know that deer are an issue. There is a suspicion that they might be. That's why I think the cameras could be interesting. But it's really just to see if you get more growth and what type of growth you get in that area. Like a big problem with deer are that they really love the seedlings and the saplings, the tree seedlings and saplings. And so you don't get the regeneration of certain trees. Like, is that actually happening in Wilbour Woods? And if it is, what does that mean about the future of Wilbour Woods? But maybe it's not an issue. We don't really know. And then the question then becomes, well, what if it is an issue? In many places, if it's an issue, they just issue more hunting permits to keep the population down. In a place like Wilbour Woods, if it is an issue, what do you do? And I think
Right.
That's a question that we don't necessarily have the answer for.
Well, your management plan calls for no hunting. So.
The deed calls for no hunting, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true. But even if you learn something from this, it'll be very interesting, but you're not going to be able to do anything if it turns out that it's from the deer.
Right. And it's happening by just looking at the woods. If you can go in the woods and count the number of deer prints in a square, I mean, you'll be shocked at how many deer prints are in those woods. This is the first year in 23 years that the deer ate my vinca. I've never seen them eat vinca before.
I think one thing we have the opportunity to do, though, is to take a look at what's going on with Wilbour Woods. And even if we don't have the ability to do anything about deer specifically in Wilbour Woods, there's the opportunity to do quite a bit on the land surrounding it.
Yeah.
I think it would be a good educational and community piece, even for landowners and plantings and things. to have an understanding of how much of an issue our deer population is. And my sense is that compared to places like South County, North Kingstown, that whole area over there, we are in far, far better position than somewhere like that. But if we get to that point, there's no turning back once it's.
Mhm.
Why is that, Terry?
The hunting issue is a thorny one, because if you're hunting deer to hunt deer for meat or whatever is one thing. If you're shooting deer because they're eating your crops or they're destroying wildlife, it's not hunting. So it's a fine line, and it's something you gotta look at town ordinances. Are you hunting deer on town property, or are you eradicating a pest on town property? And I don't know. I mean, I can hunt them anytime I want here. I'm using the word hunt synonymously with eradication. I don't. I have a trouble shooting Bambi, but that's me personally. But I don't know. You're gonna have people wandering around Wilbour Woods with guns. I don't think that's a good idea.
I don't think we,
You
I don't
can't.
think that's, I don't think.
It would,
that's
it would
the
have
message.
to be bow only, I would think, if it was in there. I mean, if it happened at all.
Yeah.
I mean, because even then, to get the distance away from surrounding houses, that would still be tight.
It's
The
not
deed-
permitted.
The deed legally restricts hunting on Wilbour.
No, but I'm saying if for whatever reason people were able to go in there and it wasn't hunting, it
No,
was
I hear you,
eradicate. It
Jason.
was
There's already hunting going on all the properties around Wilbour Woods.
Yeah.
It is primarily bow, but not entirely. It depends which piece of property you're talking about.
gotcha.
Basically,
Okay, thank you.
we're talking about deer eradication. There's
Well,
no other solution except eradicating the deer, isn't it?
So I get worried about the word eradication, because deer are part of a healthy forest. I mean, they have a role to play. The problem is when you have too many. So we don't want to eradicate the deer, and I don't think hunting in Wilbour Woods is an option. I think really the bottom line, what we're really trying to get a handle on here is how healthy are the woods? How healthy is Wilbour Woods? Do we have tree regeneration? Do we have an understory? Do we have a shrub layer? Like, do we have all the layers of a forest represented in Wilbour Woods? And that's where I think maybe spending some time with a forest expert could be helpful. The deer exposure would just be part of getting your arms around that. Like, so let's say you put up an exclosure and then there's no difference in the growth inside and outside of it. You kind of, you've learned something there. So yeah, Sheila.
I have no sense of the width or the height of an exposure.
So yeah, the
Sorry,
height.
I was just going to say, I didn't mean go.
Yep.
You go ahead.
No, you go, Jason, go for it.
I was just going to say I've put them up before, and I would definitely recommend 6 feet. They can jump a lot higher than most people think. It would have to have, and most of these kits come with some kind of a gate. So it's a pipe along the bottom, a pipe along the top. So, skinny, small stuff, usually painted black so it blends in, black mesh so that it can see through it and it blends in. And then the kits come with a door, most of them, or you can get one with a door so that it opens and closes, but it seals all the way from the top all the way to the ground. So there's not even really a space at the bottom.
How big around?
Well, that's up to whatever, you all think is appropriate for the size, for the enclosure. But height is something I wouldn't skimp on.
I totally agree with Jason, and I'm sure that's what Sue's research will show as well. Something that's either covered or high enough to make sure it works. To Sue's earlier point, though, I think the other piece of information we stand to gain is not just about the deer population, which we may or may not feasibly be able to do anything about, but the history of management in Wilbour Woods, the degree to which the area that is cleared is being more heavily used by deer or less, I think is a point that's interesting. We're going to have some decisions to make about whether or not that the area that's been historically cleared continues to be cleared at that level and what that looks like or what that requires. But I think the question of forest regeneration specifically in the cleared areas is going to determine the future of what Wilbour Woods looks like. You know, if we end up with a situation where we're not getting any regeneration or not allowing any regeneration, and the trees we have are, you know, slowly falling over and getting taken down or falling down or, you know, aging out, because they're all, you know, they're oaks and red maples, they're not going to last forever. We're going to end up with increasing sunlight and increasing invasive issues, you know, that we're already seeing start. So I think it has more to do with the sort of the anticipated future of the property and the wooded aspect of the property as much as it has to do with just deer.
Why can't we make a decision not to clear as much as being cleared without, I mean, just as a committee?
We could, but that will change the character and some of the qualities that you know, are currently part of Wilbour Woods too. It's all, you know, it's all moving parts, but I don't think we have a whole lot of information about the health of the forest itself to help us make some of those decisions. And this would be one way to start.
So you would decide as a result of this study, it would educate you as to what parts maybe shouldn't be cleared in the future to further regenerative growth?
I think it would give us information about whether the rates of regeneration are being affected by clearing, not clearing, deer, or no deer. You know, those are sort of the factors you're playing around with. The difference between, you know, my guess is that there's deer pressure in all areas. It's not as extreme as it is in some places in southern New England. But I don't know the degree to which the compounding variables of what's been cleared for aesthetic reasons or whatever reasons, combined with deer pressure, if those two things end up being, you know, more than the sum of the parts.
So, like, in other words, if you were to put an exclosure up in the cleared area and you found that within the cleared area, you didn't have growth that was substantially different within the exclosure and outside the exclosure, okay, let me start again. If you have the exclosure in the cleared area and you have the exclosure in the natural area and you find that you're getting much more growth in the natural area than in the cleared area, then it could, you know, maybe cause you to question what's the future of this cleared area. It doesn't seem to be regenerating itself. So maybe the answer then is to just keep it cleared so invasives don't come in. In other words, you would draw some conclusion that would help you to understand what to do with the cleared area. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't think there's any interest in clearing additional areas, but there is a question of what to do with the present area that's cleared. I think that's one of the big questions. Now, I may find, like, if I can get to the URI people, I may find that they didn't find their exclosure experiment to be helpful, and they didn't find that they got any useful information out of it. Then, I mean, we may decide that this isn't something that's useful to do. I think it's just more something to be explored right now is how I'm looking at it.
Shouldn't we start with the forest expert?
I would, yep, that was number two. Number one was interviewing Public Works, and number two is a walk through the woods with a forest expert. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And I'm not sure who that expert might be, or, you know, maybe what government agency to look to, or what college or university to look to for that person, or maybe.
Hasn't Carol, you've already been in there, and Carolyn, yes. You've been in and have made some observations about the forest health. You know a lot.
I think it would be great to find somebody who would specifically look at forest community and regeneration. I don't think it has to be a big deal. I'm sure we could find someone who would come and give us some fresh eyes.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, there's absolutely no harm in getting smarter.
So could you recommend somebody?
Yeah. Do you have some recommendations?
I think between Sue and I, we could probably find a few leads.
Great.
That sounds like a good idea.
Great idea.
The
Hey,
other-
everybody, I've got to go back to work, so I'm gonna jump out here.
Thanks, Paul.
And I will catch up with you, John, afterwards.
Okay.
All right, thanks, guys.
Good.
All
Okay,
right, bye,
good.
Paul.
Right.
Good. The other point, I was thinking about the idea that was brought up earlier. If we do exclosure, and it seems to be working, do we take it down after a certain time and whatever? I could see, for instance, if the exclosure were working to have oak seedlings coming up, we might have a movable exclosures that move all over the woods over time.
A
Once
nursery.
the oaks get, 8 feet tall or 10 feet tall, they're not that vulnerable to deer. They're just when they're saplings that are a problem.
So how long does it take an oak from seedling to get 8 feet tall?
I don't know, 10 years probably. It's a long-term
So-
project.
So I turned 80 this year. So
Wow.
So we'll put you in
maybe,
for,
maybe by the end of our natural lives, we will have evidence from one exclosure. Because if you take it off too early, the deer will come in and eat everything that you had under the exclosure.
well, I think we could actually tell if the oaks are regenerating when they're only a foot tall, though.
Yeah, but you can't tell if it's going to be sustainable unless you take the enclosure down.
I think it might be fun to have one that's permanent.
Yeah.
Have a spot
It
that
looks
just
like that would be
the
the better
deer
way.
just don't touch. See
Right.
what happens.
Yeah.
So I don't know, we can sign Rob up for 3 consecutive 10-year exclosures.
I'll take the shift from 2031 to 2041.
Yeah.
I think it'll also give us some idea. I mean, the clearing that's been done in Wilbour Woods has already been sort of selective, like hollies get left just because it's been it's a local preference.
Yeah.
Even things like that, just getting a better understanding what's being controlled by deer as opposed to what, especially in the cleared areas, was. I mean, because anything like that, we can choose to do what's been done in the past, or we could choose to do something different. Try to promote certain things that deer don't want, but that will fill in the area, or there are lots of different aspects that we could look at.
Mhm.
All right. So Sue, you're still game to be steering the ship on the deer exclosure?
Yeah, so I think that that we can talk more next Tuesday, when we're actually physically in the woods after, we've had time with Dawn. But also, we'll get our heads around getting an expert out there and working on an interview with Public Works Past to get a history of the clearing. So
Just caution you, try not to make this meeting on the 27th, which really isn't a meeting, it's a gathering.
sorry, yeah, great.
Try not to do too much discussion of business.
Okay,
It's going to be perceived as a meeting that you didn't post if you actually function less than a quorum. And then what happens is you go home and you start talking to the others. That becomes their rolling quorum. So you're going to get yourself into trouble if you start doing too much conversation. Just
Okay,
absorb what you can, and at the next meeting, do the conversation.
okay, got you. And then there was the part about being a work team and doing an official assignment that was assigned by John. That was an okay thing to do, Carol. So I shouldn't say team, I should say work.
If he assigned somebody a task,
Yeah,
a subcommittee, then you don't have to post meetings. But if you start functioning as a subcommittee, you're going to have to post meetings. So that's where I caution not too many of you getting together. Do not make a discussion fest, because people are going to perceive it as a meeting and they're going to expect that it should have been posted.
gotcha.
Yeah, it's just a reconnaissance. So we'll come back and have the meeting on the 3rd.
Just like I said, not too much conversation, individually absorb what you want from the environment and then bring the
Take
conversation.
some pictures,
to the meeting.
take pictures and
Take
so on.
pictures or
Yeah.
videos or whatever. Mhm. Okay.
All
Sounds
right.
you.
Well, I'm glad we brought up, Sue, I didn't realize we were ready to talk about deer exposures at such length. This is fantastic.
Well, it's just all the initial thoughts. So
So,
I have a question.
Sue, yeah, go ahead.
Is there an optimum time for a forest expert to look at the woods? Is early spring a good time, or how does that work?
Carol, I would defer to you.
I would suspect any time over the next few months would probably be the easiest time for someone to assess the situation, just when, things are starting to leaf out and it's a little easier to get a sense of what's going on. But I'm sure for someone who has the kind of expertise we're talking about, it probably isn't going to matter too much.
Okay, just curious.
Sue,
Yes.
when you come back and talk to us about this, it would be very helpful for me to know really what sort of size you're talking about. So I get the 6 feet I could figure out, but I have no sense of the area that's being discussed.
And,
don't
and
know.
Sheila, I feel the same way.
Oh, okay.
So
So you'll be on it.
No, I feel the same way. I've read studies where, there's been like a half an acre fenced off. I don't think we're talking that size at all. So
Yeah.
I feel like the height is the easy part. How big it should be is the hard part. And that's why I feel like it's very vague at the moment, just because it's embryonic. How's that for a word?
Excellent. That works.
It's embryonic.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I think we will be meeting on the 3rd, and reconnaissance
Oh, yeah.
and photographs before that.
Okay, sounds good.
I think, is there any other items, or should we request a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Okay, any seconds?
Second.
Okay.
Does everybody agree?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody? Anybody not agree? All right. Thank you. This meeting is closed. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Bye-bye.